Okay, good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is 12 o'clock, and so my name is Mike Hogan. I'm a OSU Extension Educator and a member of the OSU Direct Marketing team. And this series of webinars is a new initiative that we started this year. This is the second one. We started one in January, and we will go and do one every month through October. And the next one will be on March 27th on the topic of selling to schools, getting market ready to sell food products to schools. And when we think about schools, we mean everything from kindergarten, preschools through college campuses. And so we will send out the connection information just like we did this time. Glad to see that we've got lots of participants for this discussion. And we do want to make it a discussion. If you have questions, you should have a chat box down in the lower right side of your screen. Just go ahead and type your question or your comment in there, and we'll handle questions that way. It seems like with microphones, it gets pretty complicated to try to have live participation, and so this is the best way, I think, to handle that. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Our topic for today is the top 10 emerging marketing trends for 2014 for farmers and food producers. Julie Fox, a coworker of mine, Julie was our direct marketing specialist for OSU Extension based at the South Centers at Piketon. Julie recently transitioned into a new role. She kind of went over to the dark side and is now with administration. But Julie and I put this presentation together for the Ohio OPGMA, Produce Growers and Marketers Association Conference last month, and we also presented it at OFA a couple of weeks ago, and really it was a very good discussion starter for farmers and food producers on some trends to think about, and just the idea of how do you assess the market and market trends and how folks ought to think. And so Julie and I put together this top 10 emerging trends. Some of them are trends that you will recognize and have been around for a while, if you will. Others are just that, emerging, things that you may raise your eyebrows and say, really? But the idea is to look at some different sources of information to project, what trends might be impacting your business, no matter what that business is. But we're gonna concentrate on food businesses. And what we did was looked at information from, I think, some non-traditional sources for many farmers and even food producers. Julie is real good at looking at market research and identifying groups that do market research, both private groups, trade associations, the Grocers Association, the National Restaurant Association. They expend a lot of resources every year on trends and looking at trends for their members. And I'm not so sure that many of the farmers that are direct marketing to consumers, fruits, vegetables, meats, any type of food product really, or you could even include other non-food agricultural products like plants and natural products, and even timber-based wood products. I'm not so sure we've done as good a job as our non-farmer and food producer segments of the food industry of looking at trends. And so that's the impetus for us putting this together. Sometimes there are more questions than answers. This is meant to provoke thinking, thought, and questions about what's coming down the pike and how can we as food producers tap into some of these trends. So with that, we'll get started. What we suggest to marketers, to farmers, and food producers is to look at trends from lots of different sources, from multiple sources, and sources that maybe you don't always go to. It's easy for us as fruit and vegetable growers to go to OPGMA and go to the Congress and look to their publications. But I would suggest that if you broaden the scope of where you look for market information, market research, you can identify some opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have identified, or maybe you wouldn't have identified them as quickly. Maybe you might become an early adopter or innovator for some of these trends. And then obviously you have to develop a strategy that works for your business and your product. And then as a good manager, you've got to measure and manage how that's working for you and make adjustments. when we presented this as a workshop before, we've kind of gone through the 10 trends, and at each one we've built in time for discussion with the group, and asked for farmers and food producers to share information with the group about, do you see this as a specific trend for your business or your market? Have you tried something here? Was it a flop, or did it fly well for you? And that's been useful to that conversation and experiences of different people to work in. Unfortunately, I don't think we can do that as well with this format of a webinar, but certainly go ahead and add your comments or questions to your chat, to the chat box, if you would. So with that, the number one a trend that we see is local, and there's obviously no surprise there. You have to be hiding under a very big rock to not know about demand related to locally produced products. And certainly whenever we discuss local production and local foods and local anything, the question always is, how do we define local? And I like to say it's a journey, it's not a destination. Everyone defines local differently. It's very place-based. When I was working in eastern Ohio, in Steubenville along the Ohio River, we had some local foods projects. And local for us was Ohio, West Virginia, right across the river, and Pennsylvania, which was just 15 miles across the panhandle of West Virginia. So certainly local differs depending on where you are in the state. For many folks, local conjures up the state. Ohio produced in Ohio. USDA has a definition of local. Their definition is anything produced within 400 miles of where it's consumed or eaten. And certainly there's not any right or wrong definitions. It's just whatever works for you. Now you could argue that local isn't an emerging trend, and I would agree that it certainly isn't emerging. But the reason we put it as the number one trend and we kept it on on this list is because it's evolving. And certainly the whole issue of local foods isn't new, but the way it's evolving. Producing different products and marketing them in different ways, how farmers and how markets and marketers of food and ag products are marketing their products is changing. And really local has matured. But it is kind of an overarching trend, I think, for many food products. And especially here in Ohio, when we are fortunate to have the convergence of production, agricultural production, and lots of consumers. 11 or 12 consumers just within our state's borders, and then how many millions more when we draw the concentric rings around the state. And so local works for us here. It's not a fad. Several years ago, when local was new, when folks were just starting to exploit it as a marketing tool, if you will, many folks thought it was a fad. It was going to be a trend that comes and goes, and it's not. It's here to stay. It's years ago the trend term that was popular was mega trends, and I would say that local production is a mega trend. When we see the big box retailers and large grocers and food retailers getting in on local, you may disagree on how they define local and how they market local, and the maybe some of the quality attributes of some of their local offerings. But I think the fact that they are investing resources to capitalize on this really shows that this is not something that's going to fade away after a couple of years. Here is what Julie and I found is so many of the trade associations and the groups that food retailers, grocers, restaurateurs, and even institutional foods, they yearly do these top 10 lists, if you will, and they analyze market data and try to put together lists of trends for their members. And so, when you or I as a consumer go into a restaurant or a grocery store and see something new, it may be new to us, but it may have been trending for a couple years in the industry and being tried out in different markets and tested. So what we find, and that's really how I think we came upon the idea of this top 10 list of emerging trends for farmers and food producers, is because so many of the trade associations, it seemed, related to food, have these top 10 lists every year at the end of the year or the beginning of the year. This is one from the National Restaurant Association. They do it every year for their members, their top trends for restaurants. And you can see almost every single one of those is related, I think, to the whole concept of locally produced and locally consumed. Locally grown produce, number 2 on this list, has been on this list for several years. It used to be number 1. Locally sourced meats and seafood is a real popular one now, and according to the Restaurant Association, the number 1 trend for their members. But even these others, environmental sustainability and more healthful meals for kids, this certainly relates very well and dovetails very well with the attributes and objectives of a local food system. Hyper-local sourcing, this has really moved up on the list, and I would suspect next year at this time, if we were having this conversation looking at the NRA's top 10 trends, my guess is this will be very close to the top 3. And I think we're seeing this in many areas of Ohio, particularly in our urban areas where restaurants are getting into actually producing food, and if they're not producing them on-site, out back with small gardens or herb gardens, there's even a restaurant in Columbus now that has a very extensive rooftop garden. If they're not doing that, what they are doing is contracting with producers and farmers to grow for them at the farmer's site. But the whole idea of this very hyper-local, fresh cut from behind the back door of the kitchen and used to prepare your food. The farm estate branded items, sustainable seafood, not something that we'll spend a lot of time looking at in Ohio, but all of these really go with the whole idea of this local being a trend that's here to stay. This private company, A.T. Kearney, a market research firm, last year did a study for grocery retailers, large firms, to look at what the market potential is for local foods and what groceries needed to do to maximize returns from that. And here's some results that I think are interesting. One of the things they asked shoppers was, why do they make local for food purchasing decisions? Why do they buy local? And you can see all the different things here, reasons they said that they buy local. The number 1 attributes that consumers said, the things they were looking for when they made local food purchasing decisions, is quality and taste. And that's not uncommon. I work with a farmer's market that we started, I think this will be the 30th year for the market. Very successful small town market in Ohio. And every year we did market surveys with customers, and we asked them, what they wanted to see more of at the market. But one of the things I was always intrigued with is we asked them, why do you shop at this farmer's market? And price was never higher than number 4, ever. It was always quality, taste. At that farmer's market, people rated very highly the ability to support their local economy and to know the farmer. So I think this is common in most local food markets, no matter what the outlet, whether it's a grocery store, a farmer's market, or a direct farm sales, a CSA, or whatever. People really identify with the quality and taste attributes of locally produced foods. In that survey, the customers were also asked, where they find the best quality, and no surprise here, farmers markets came out on top. They were also asked where they find the best prices, and the local supermarkets came out on top here. Again, probably not any real surprise there. When the researchers combined the rankings, what was interesting to me and very helpful, I think, is that farmers markets came out on top. When they put together these two components of price and quality, farmers markets, edged out local markets. Another thing that's interesting, I think, when you look at some of the national, the big box grocery stores, you look at these numbers here, they certainly have some work to do relative to both quality and pricing. And so I think that was probably the impetus for, part of the impetus for this contracting for this study. In that same study, consumers were asked, how much more are you willing to pay for local products? And they broke this up into different demographic segments, of consumers, from single urban households to young couples that didn't have kids, families that were affluent, middle-income families, senior citizens, and low-income families. And you can see here that the red is how many consumers said that they were willing to pay a 5% premium for locally produced product. The green is folks that indicated they were willing to pay a 10% premium, and then the blue is folks that were willing to pay more than a 10% premium. Again, no real surprises here. If there's a surprise, I think it's that this the kind of the bedrock support, if you will, across the board, even with low-income families, that they recognize that there is a premium that needs to be paid for locally produced items, and that they're willing to pay that 5%. So I think this is important for producers, farmers, and food producers to recognize and understand. The second trend that we identified was the whole issue of healthy products. And there's many different indicators, I think, in the market of this. This was from a restaurant trade association where they're predicting a growth for their members, particularly in the plant-based proteins and dark greens. They see a huge increase there. The Progressive Grocer is projecting large increases in certain fresh vegetables, particularly mushrooms. Recently on NPR, I was driving down the road and heard this whole program on cauliflower. Cauliflower is apparently the new broccoli. It's where broccoli was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And in fact, I was at a restaurant, a very trendy restaurant in Columbus in the short north last weekend, and there were not a very extensive menu, and there were two entree or small plate items that featured cauliflower, and one was a cauliflower steak. It was a vegetarian alternative to a meat steak. It was cauliflower steak, and it even had cauliflower puree that it was served on a bed of. And so you don't have to go very far to find examples of substitution of more healthy products, and particularly fruits and vegetables and less processed products. Beverages are another example where people seem to be trending towards more healthful vegetables and healthful foods. And we even see this at some farm markets where folks are capitalizing on this and seeing fruit smoothies and drinks like that as a way to add some profit and also meet the demand that consumers have for more healthful food items. There's also this, what we call a health halo effect. You can see a bunch of different monikers or attributes that folks tend to put on some types of foods, and consumers seem to think that when they see one of these that they automatically, this product's more healthy for them. Certainly some are for certain individuals, some are in certain, as part of certain diets, but it seems to be a trend that the folks are using these types of monikers to convey this health halo effect for consumers. The next trend is the whole idea of a signature product. And if you've ever been to like a Schmidt's sausage house in Columbus, or in the German Village, or the state fair in Columbus, you know what their signature product is. They serve lots of German foods, but what's their signature product? Most of you would answer, know that it's the Bahama Mama. It's their sausage. It's what they're known for. Another good example in the same area of Columbus, Thurman's restaurant has their signature dish is the Therminator. It's this burger. It's been featured on Man v. Food. When somebody says in Columbus Thurman's, that's immediately what comes to mind. And we see examples of this in farm markets and with other types of products. Restaurants are very good at having signature products. They really refined this, and we probably haven't done a great job with this with fruits and vegetables and other farm products. But as an example, I recently moved to Central Ohio, and I was less familiar with some of the farmers and farm markets, and became familiar with Brandstool Orchards in Licking County. And in Central Ohio, if you ask anybody about Brandstool Orchards, the first thing they're going to say is Brandstool Peaches. That's their signature product for them. They grow lots of fruit there, different fruits, and lots of vegetables. But when somebody says Brandstool Orchards, peaches come to mind for most consumers. And so, the question is that Julie and I would pose is, can you do that as a farmer or food producer? What are you known for? At the farmer's market, what is your stand known for? It doesn't mean that's the only thing you will sell or produce, but perhaps, if you focus on something, having consumers identify your business with a specific product is a way to get more people to think of your business when they come to that particular market. And you can do this no matter what type of, whatever the sales channel you use, whether it's an on-farm market or stands at farmers markets, CSAs, you can certainly have a signature product. Another trend that we saw that kind of came again from a source that is different, is this idea of ugly produce or ugly products, things that don't look exactly the same. Not that aren't high quality. There's two ways, I suppose, that someone could market some food products as proudly imperfect or ugly produce. And one is the whole issue of seconds, and the other is first, that the very high quality products that just don't fit that very uniform standard. You can liken this to the pumpkins that years ago, some of the warts on pumpkins, they didn't sell those pumpkins, or they pitched them in the compost pile or whatever. And now pumpkin growers plant the varieties that have the bumpy rinds and the warts on them because people like those. Perhaps there's some potential for us to capitalize on more market share by producing things that are not exactly perfect and marketing them that way. Number 5, snacks and portion size. I really was intrigued with this graphic. This is another private research firm. They looked at all the meals eaten away from home, both in restaurants, and they found that 20% of all meals eaten away counted as snacks. Of all purchases of meals were snacks. And so this whole idea of 3 squares, if that's the only thing we as food producers are targeting consumers for, and we're missing out on 20% of the potential market for our products. Last year, 1 in 5 best-selling new foods were either bite-sized or handheld. You can just watch commercials on TV for fast food and other places, and you see cups full of donuts, or cups full of chicken fingers or chicken tenders in cups, so that people can put them in the car holder on the go and eat them that way. 45% of consumers want snacks that they can eat on the go. The Lempert report, their number 2 trend this year was better for you snacking, and what they found was really kind of an intriguing piece was that individuals that had overall higher diet qualities, they were eating more healthy foods as a rule. For that group, they had higher rates of snackings. Okay, and it kind of, maybe at least for me at first blush, that is opposite of what I would have predicted. But the idea is that they're snacking on healthy options. And so this whole idea of healthy snacks being on the rise. We're starting to see supermarkets, replace at the checkout counter, the candy bars and the high sugar, high fat snacks with more healthier on-the-go offerings. We see that at convenience stores. And is there ways that producers of fruits and vegetables can take advantage of that? I think there probably are. Particularly with millennials, those people that define about 18 to 34-year-olds, there's this very rapid expanding trend of eating between meals, snacking. And so that's a demographic, the millennials, 18 to 34-year-olds, that many marketers covet. And so that's something to think about as we're producing and selling food. I think the whole idea of tasting menus, you can't go to restaurants anymore and not see tasting menus and the small plates. Many new restaurants, especially in urban areas, will have menus that are much larger in small plates and smaller portion sizes than the typical restaurant with a larger entrees or the multi-course meal. People like that too, that they can try more things and share and things like that. Number 6, the whole idea of mobile technology and social networking and being social online. There's the supermarket guru, Phil Lempert. This is someone who does a lot of market research for grocers and food retailers, and it was one of his number 1 predictions for this year is transitioning marketing to appeal to more tech-savvy shoppers. They say that there is a group of shoppers, and most likely they're in that coveted, some of them group of millennials and some boomers, that want to do what he calls click to cook, where they can go online and find a recipe or see a picture, and then right while they're online they can order ingredients, they can pay from their mobile device, and maybe at some point just not get out of their car but go through a drive-through and pick up what they ordered to cook whatever that they selected online. Just like we drive through to pick up our order from the pharmacy or something like that. There's also probably going to be packaging that evolves to share more information with consumers. The whole idea of using technology, using the QR codes and things like that to give more information, ideas to consumers that they can use. One caveat there, or one caution, I personally see lots of QR codes and some by farm markets and farmers and food producers, folks that direct market to consumers, where they try to use the technology, but there's no value to the consumer. There's too many QR codes that just go directly to the farm's website or the market's website. And I'm not so sure that's the best use of technology, just to drive traffic to your website. There needs to be some value there for the consumer, some coupon, some deal, or it could be educational, whether it's a recipe that they identify with. But simply using it as another way to get somebody to your website, I'm not so sure is going to, in the end, play well with this group of consumers. The millennials, that group that I mentioned several times, they're the ones that are making the supermarket social. When I go to the grocery store, my wife asks me to get a whole bunch of things. Typically, it's still written on a sticky note, I tore off in the kitchen. And then I go and I see folks that are a little bit younger than me. What's their note on? Well, they're using their smartphone, or they're using their tablet, or their iPad. That's what they're using to shop. And so how can we as food marketers tap into the desire they have to make the supermarket social? It used to be when you wanted to look for a recipe, you got out a book and you looked in a cookbook, and now folks are online. And here's the top 5 social media sites for consumers to get recipes. And one very fast growing seems to be Pinterest, but you can see where folks are getting recipes online. And so the question begs is, what's the next step? How do we as food producers tap into where people are getting recipes? How can we then drive them to our products, our markets, or our farms? Food packaging one, that's one that we've discussed for years. Here's a picture here of a new, relatively new delivery system that Jenny's Ice Cream has in several airports. And you probably can't see very well on your screen, but on the side of the machine there it says, you can get these here now, but you can order from your mobile device and we'll meet you there. Whole idea of packaging and delivery, how we're connecting with consumers. The packaging industry has a yearly trade show called the Pack Expo, and they identified the 3 areas for that industry of attention and growth were sustainability, portability, and food safety. And so packaging is evolving. It's very closely related to technology. There are some, I think, implications for producers of food items. Some future food packaging forecasts include the idea of intelligent packaging that's more sensory, more engaging, tells consumer more. Again, this is related to technology using QR codes and other technology to tell the story of your product. There's also some evidence that consumers have label fatigue. We've put so much on the label. The nutritional information, which, as I heard this morning, the FDA is just changing, and that's going to be a little bit simplified, the nutritional information on food. But the ingredients and so many other things that are there for different reasons, that consumers probably have label fatigue, and it's probably not a great place to engage consumers anymore. And so that's where the use of technology can come in to help you connect more. This whole idea of edible packaging, apples and some fruits, have the ultimate edible packaging. But food scientists are working on actual edible packaging for food products. The idea is a burrito or a handheld type of sandwich would have packaging that is completely edible. And I think the reason why we've not seen it rolled out in the market yet or widespread is that they're working out the kinks of something that not only serves as the packaging but is also tasty to the consumer or the end user. Number 8, waste and sustainability, and not just composting and using food waste, but this whole idea of using more of the product as edible parts. The idea of nose to tail or root to stalk cooking, and finding other uses for other parts of the product. Consumers are interested in this. The one food industry association, their top industry predictions for this year, 2014, were, you can see, transparency and sourcing integrity, green everything, packaging and products, And then third, food repurposing and food waste awareness trumps taste. Well, I'm not so sure that for me that trumps taste, but the whole idea that consumers are interested in and place a value on not wasting some of the food. I think the information about how much food in the United States never gets used, but it goes bad or is not used, causes concern for people, and so there's this interest in not just recycling and composting, but trying to repurpose and use more food items. Number 9 is one that I think is really intriguing and one that probably portends really well, I think, for producers of farm and food products. And that's the idea of consumer segmentation. For years we've talked about looking at the demographics of your customer, whoever that customer is, but you can take that one step further. And several market research firms have their own segmentation systems for consumers of food products. This one here, it's proprietary, but you can look up Simmons Food Lifestyle online, Google it, and this group comes up with, they divide consumers into 6 distinct groups with different motivations and aspirations when they make food purchases. Everything from on-the-go folks to people who are true foodies, people who are weekend cooks, Reformed traditionals. That sounds like a church group, if you will. But what they mean there is folks who are probably 50-something or more and have kind of maybe seen the light, if you will, about the need for a more healthy diet, a more active lifestyle. And so they're making different decisions because of that when they purchase food. There's several groups that have done this consumer segmentations. They're different but very similar. Another one, the Silver Link segmentation, looks at consumer segments within the boomer generation, people age 50 and up, if you will. One reason why you might want to look at this group is that next year the boomer part of society will control more than half of all the grocery dollars spent in the United States. And so we can understand the demographics of this group, but we also need to take that a step farther and understand the different aspirations and motivations that different people that are in this demographic group. This Silver Link segmentation, they come up with 6 different segments of the boomer segment of the population. You can see what they call them there. Once you look at those, you can then dig deeper, I think, in local demographics. One very neat demographic website that I just became aware of is called the PRISM site, PRIZM. Again, it's proprietary, although they do have some that you can use for free, and you can Google PRISM and get there. But what's neat about this site is you put in the zip code of the community you want to look at, and not only do you get the census tract demographics that you can get in many places, and most of you'll do that now, with household size and age and how many kids under 18 and how many rental units as compared to home ownership and all those things. But what you get on this site is some really neat data about consumer different segments of the population in that zip code, how many there are, and what some of the very specific attributes are of that population. I recently moved from a very rural area in eastern Ohio to Columbus, and I was very intrigued. I put in both my old zip code and my new zip code, and some of the descriptors that they used for both of those zip codes were just dead on to what a majority of the population there drive, whether they're pickup trucks, whether they're hybrids, SUVs, how many of them own guns, how many belong to health clubs. Really some very different data than I think you get when you look at census tract data for demographics. Market Maker, I think most of you have probably heard of that. Some of you hopefully are plugged into Market Maker. That's a multi-state project that Ohio is part of. It's kind of, one component is, speed dating, if you will, for farmers and buyers of food products. But there's also a demographic information and market research information that you can, again, look at census tract data that you can find other places and look at consumption data of different food products, and just a way to understand the market potential in an area that you may think about marketing in. And the last one's kind of a catch-all, but it's technology, and I think different technology than what we're thinking about in the mobile and social networking part. And I'm not so sure we know what the technology will be. But things like 3D printing, which I personally didn't understand until I read up on it. There's probably the cost of these things are really coming down very recently, and there's probably applications there where particularly farm markets and agritourism and CSAs might be able to produce products that we would think to use to market our operation. Certainly with production, this isn't news to any of you, but certainly technology related to production, whether it's robotic type applications or the Google glasses, the augmented reality, will certainly have an effect on how we market food products in the future. If I had to pick a technology that will be the next smartphone, if you will, it's probably the Google glasses. How quick they will get to be widespread, certainly isn't known, but it will be neat to see how food producers and marketers can tap into that, just like we've tapped into the smartphone technology. And certainly there's other technologies in the production sector that might have very specific applications for food production and very specific production systems. In this example, aeroponics, growing indoors, is a potential for urban production of food products, supplying nutrients atmospherically through the air, kind of like hydroponic production. When we looked at some non-food business trends, we found that they fit really well with the trends that we were seeing from food trade groups and industries. Here are some that were listed in non-food business industry group. The emergence of local artisans, obviously that fits right with local. Increase in consumer interaction and honesty, convergence of the physical and digital experiences, and content-driven marketing and communications. So I think certainly there are differences, but certainly in the food industry we see that our trends somewhat mirror business trends for other industries in the United States. Here are some websites where we got the information that if you'd like to explore further. Again, they're not typical farm or food producer sources of information, and I think sometimes it's helpful to have that different perspective and that different set of glasses, if you will, and see how maybe you might fit into some of these trends and some of these industries. Somebody said the good news about marketing is it'll be around forever. The bad news is that it won't be exactly the way you learned it, because it changes rapidly. We have, I would mention to you that refer you to our website. We have a great Ohio direct marketing website. It's directmarketing.osu.edu, where we put a lot of our resources, and there are a lot of links to other external resources. We have a lot of partners, external partners from our university that work with us in the direct marketing team, like Farm Bureau and Ohio Department of Agriculture and some other commodity groups, and there's links to those as well. And then we have relatively new a blog site at u.osu.edu/directmarketing, and I would encourage you to sign up for that blog. We're just starting, not lots of traffic there yet, but our hope is that would be a way that we can instantly communicate and share ideas and have conversations back and forth. So those are our 10 top emerging trends for this year. I don't see any questions, but if anybody has any questions, I'll quit talking here and wait to see if we get any questions pop up in the chat box. It looks like someone is typing. Someone's asking, will you be showing highlights of the top 10 again? We will post. I'm not sure what the question refers to, is if we'll do this again in the future. But it seems like a good conversation starter. And so if the question is, next year will we look at this and see if what new trends there are? Sure. If there's interest, we absolutely will. If the question is you came in late and you wanted to go back, this is being recorded, so the whole recording will be archived and will be put on our direct marketing site that I mentioned here that you can access or share with others. And Beth has put the exact address there where it will be posted that you can see there. Other questions? Looks like several folks are typing, so we'll give some time to folks to type. So the question is, what is the best way to market direct to the farmer? Maybe that means for the farmer to direct market. And I don't, I think that's the question. Personally, I don't know there is any best one way. We recently taught what we called marketing boot camp for 3 hours, where we explored all sorts of direct marketing options that farmers could engage in. And as I said, during this presentation, we're fortunate in Ohio to have this convergence, if you will, of by consumers and farmers or food producers. That doesn't happen everywhere. If you were in North Dakota, you certainly wouldn't have that divergence. And even in other north central states, Illinois, certainly downstate away from Chicago, they don't have the plethora of consumers like we do. Or even some neighboring bordering states, Pennsylvania, you get out of the urban areas. In Ohio, we're fortunate. We have more urban SMSAs, statistical standard metropolitan areas. We have more than any other state in the union. California is the only state, much larger than Ohio, to have more urban areas. And so that gives a lot of opportunities for us to turn that population into consumers. So certainly, CSAs, farmers markets. Farmers markets have just exploded. There are thousands of them now. CSAs, kind of ebbs and flows in popularity. It seems like we're seeing a little bit more popularity of CSAs right now in urban areas, where even some of the production is in urban areas. I don't think there's any, and certainly farm markets, on-farm markets, we can find terrific examples throughout all parts of Ohio where people are successful selling at on-farm markets, some seasonal, some year-round. There's no best one way. It really depends on what your product mix is, who your target consumers are, and how much you're going to invest in that marketing. So there's lots of ways to skin a cat, if you will. And if you want to explore that, if I interpreted that question right, go to our direct marketing website, because I think you'll start to see a whole collection of different resources that might help you explore where you might want to go. Question is, I just joined, maybe we discussed this already, but what's the trend for social media sites? Which is the newest and most favored, Twitter, Facebook? I am not an expert. I have two colleagues that are much more on the direct marketing team that have a lot more experience than I in this. Rob Leeds, our extension educator in Delaware County. Julie Fox, who recently transitioned, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program. They do a whole workshop on social media use for farmers. The little bit I have learned from them and that I read elsewhere is it differs again by different segments of consumers. A lot of it is related to age. Facebook. My kids tell me now they don't go to Facebook anymore because that's where Grandma is, and so we see a lot more Facebook used by the upper end of the boomer generation, and certainly we see certain groups will use different social networking or media sites for specific purposes. LinkedIn is specifically used by business professionals wanting to network that way, much different than Facebook. Pinterest, it seems to be very popular, particularly with a certain age and perhaps maybe more females than males. There's a whole science of social media as it changes, and I'm probably not the best person to address that. Another question is, what are CSAs? I apologize, I'm talking alphabet soup sometimes. CSA is an acronym for Community Supported Agriculture. It used to be called subscription farming when it was started, oh gosh, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, maybe more by now. Started primarily in the Northeast in Massachusetts, spread both coasts, and then kind of worked its way to the middle of the country as most trends typically do. But it's where consumers buy into a farm. Before the year, before the crop year, before seeds are sown, a consumer buys a share, and they may give $500 to the farmer for a share, or $300 to a farmer for a half share. And what they get for that share is a share of the produce. And so the farmer will have a schedule that says, starting in June, you will get a weekly box, and this is what it will contain in June, and this is what it will contain in July and August. Some go even year-round, or at least through the holiday season in winter, through Thanksgiving, or some even Christmas, and they'll include meat products. Turkeys are very popular, but the consumer also shares in the risk. And so I give you my $500, and you tell me I'm going to get a share every week, but part of the contract is, with weather vagaries, if production is down, that share might be smaller, or the produce might not be as high quality. Or if there was a complete crop failure for some catastrophic reason, you may not get anything. Some of the people that buy into CSAs do it because they have other social or cultural objectives. They want to support farms. It works for the farmer. They get their money up front, so they don't have to put out a lot of money to pay for interest payments for production costs, to buy their inputs, and helps them obviously with cash flow. But again, it's more risky. I don't think it's going to be something that every consumer buys into, although CSAs have evolved. There was some folks that wanted to, consumers that wanted to support a CSA and said, I can't use a whole box. I'm either a senior citizen, or I'm an empty nester, or a single young person, live alone. And we've seen CSAs change, to where there's half shares and there's every other week. And if you go on vacation or go away for the summer, there's ways to handle that. But again, I don't think it's something that's going to catch fire. That's where most consumers get their food, or even their fresh produce during the growing season, in Ohio. But it is a way that some people have been able to connect with consumers and market their products. Somebody asked, what would be wrong with a site listing farmers and their products and contact information possibly put together by the state or university? Well, there's nothing wrong with that, and that exists now in lots of different forms. We have, as I mentioned, the Ohio, our website, our Market Maker website does that. Many counties in Ohio have local foods guides that we put together on a countywide basis. Starting to see some people put together that type of information on a regional basis. Sometimes it's even smaller than a county. There's several groups in Licking County and Athens County doing what's called the 30-mile meal. They put together a listing both digitally and in print form to show people, if you want to try to eat within 30 miles of where you live or where something's produced, here are the farmers that you can connect with. Here's the markets. So yeah, that information's out there, and it's much more available and widespread than it was just a couple or 3 years ago. Our direct marketing team is working on an app, for a smartphone app, to help people connect more with those folks. There's a workshop we do called Maps and Apps to show how farmers and consumers can make more of those connections. You can type in your smartphone if you're on the highway somewhere unfamiliar and find out how close the closest Bob Evans or Wendy's or whatever it is, and wouldn't it be nice to be able to, wherever you're traveling, find where the location for fresh Ohio sweet corn or tomatoes are. So yeah, just go to our direct marketing website. If you are in a community, you've not seen that, contact your county extension office, ask where you can get that information. There are other groups that do that in the state. Ohio Farm Bureau has Our Ohio. They do the same type of thing, and so it's not hard to find that information these days. Let's see if there's more questions or I might have missed it. Has the hop and microbreweries joined forces and created a Columbus, Ohio co-op yet? Thanks. I don't know the answer to that, although that's the newest craze, is hops and people trying to grow hops here in Ohio to tap into the microbreweries. Several of the breweries have come to agronomists at OSU and other places and said, can you help us figure out, can we grow hops here in Ohio? What's the best way to do that? Brad Bergerford, a colleague of mine at the OSU South Center, he's a horticulturalist. Brad's got research trials with some of our other agronomic folks at both Worcester and Piketon to look at what's the best cultivars and also growing systems for hops. And so yeah, I mean there are some folks that I've become acquainted with who are actually growing some hops, in their garden or in their backyard over a trellis, and using them to produce some beer, in their kitchen type of thing. And I'm sure it won't be long before there is some sort of a cooperative in Central Ohio where folks are working together to buy locally produced hops in the state. And that's the neat part of the whole, that's why the number one trend, why you could argue against it being a trend, because it's so institutionalized now. But that's a really good example of how local is changing. And there's an example of a product, the whole craft brewery, and now I don't want to say new, but it's gaining steam, is the whole craft distillery or small batch distillery is huge in certain urban areas, and again they're using agricultural products, and so it's just another twist on the local food system. Let's see if there's any other questions here. Okay, somebody has a question. Why do local schools still buy produce, even hamburger, from California when it can be available locally? Is California produce still that much cheaper? Well, several answers there, and that's a very complex issue. Is California produce still that much cheaper? It is. Will it be that way this next year with the weather they're experiencing? Probably not. But there's lots of reasons why schools make the decisions they do on sourcing. And certainly huge inroads have been made just in the last 2 or 3 years with school districts in Ohio buying locally. And a couple of things have facilitated that. One is the USDA rules for school food service programs have changed so that they don't necessarily have to purchase from the lowest bidder when they bid something out. There is an option called local preference, or geographic preference, I guess it's called, so that allows someone that even if apples are cheaper to a school from the Pacific Northwest, if a school district in Granville wants to support, Lynn's Fruit Farm in the same county, but the product's just a little bit higher, never mind that the quality may be much higher, that they can do that, and that didn't used to be the case. So that has been helpful. The other thing that's driving the farm to school program, I think, is consumer acceptance and identification of the problem of the nutrition of the food service in schools was not the best, and it was not the healthiest. And so parents groups and PTOs and school systems are recognizing that, and certainly it's a long road and it's a process, but we are seeing lots of school districts advancing the concept of buying locally. We have great success stories in Ohio. We have a farm to school program. Ohio State now leads, gives leadership to the farm to school program, where we work with both farmers and school districts to work together to develop local programs that they can buy locally from farmers, and not just produce. The first thing we hear from schools is, well, that's great, but most of the produce is available in Ohio when we're out of school session, in the summer. But as the question in the chat box is, hamburger, that's something that in most communities in Ohio is produced locally, can be produced locally, and so there's lots of different foods that will be available. There's lots of the things that schools can do to extend shelf life, things like flash freezing, things like hoop houses to extend seasons, that both producers as well as schools can and are doing in the state. And so we do educational programs for schools and farmers on Farm to School. We have a statewide conference. This year we're doing actually more regional conferences in 5 different areas of the state. We have extension educators in the northeast part of the state, in Trumbull and Ashtabula County, that do a bus trip, and they load up the school food service directors and superintendents and the folks that make decisions for different school districts, and they put them on a school bus and take them out to farms and show them and let them meet the people, the farmers. They can see the products that are produced, and that's been a great way to get folks to network. Another concern that sometimes school districts have had, like other institutional food buyers, is that they worry about food safety and insurance, and that's certainly something that has changed over the last several years, and I think even small growers can demonstrate to schools and other institutional buyers that they do a more than acceptable job of food safety. We've done GAPS training for years. GAPS is Good Agricultural Practices. It's food safety for farmers and food producers, and that training program has intensified and changed as in anticipation of the Food Modernization Act passing. And so I think the snowball started down the hill with schools purchasing locally, and will only grow as time goes on. Let's see if there are other questions. And Beth has posted Brad's email there, our resident hops expert, and I don't see any more questions, and so want to thank you folks for participating, and remind you that we will do these monthly. And the hop question, we're going to have one of these direct marketing webinars just on marketing hops to Ohio microbreweries. That'll be on August 28th, and Brad is going to lead that one. Some of the other topics we're going to do, everything from marketing meat in Ohio, how farmers can do that legally. Another one is how to add value to commodities and food items you purchase, and then how to market that. We'll do one on the Maps and app, the mobile media marketing project that I mentioned to you. We'll have one on aquaponics, one on food hubs, and one on farmers markets, how to improve farmers markets. And so go to both our blog and our website, and you can see the complete listing of the schedule of webinars, as well as other programs that we have in different communities across the state on different direct marketing topics. If you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email. My email is there on the screen. Our direct marketing team is in flux. Our coordinator, Julie Fox, as I mentioned, has changed jobs, and so we've got several folks pitching in, Eric Barrett and Brad Bergerford and Rob Leeds, and until someone new is hired. But even if we can't answer your question, we can shoot you to the person who can answer your question. So thanks to everyone for participating, and have a great day.